welcome to another episode of the Transfer Portal podcast presented by NoContextCFB. I am your host, Dylan. We have a fantastic show for you this week. We have Dave Pasch, our special guest, on as our guest picker. Dave, how are you?
I'm great, guys. You guys are funny. Good to be on with you guys. I enjoy your posts on Twitter. I get a kick out of them.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It is an honor and a pleasure for sure to have you. We are also joined by Brian and Liam. Brian, welcome back to the show. You just did the week 4 recap show. How are we doing today?
We're doing great. Yeah, a lot of stuff happened week 4. Definitely a lot of storylines to follow going into week 5. It's probably coming to one of the biggest weekends of college football so far. About a month in, we're starting to kind of see who's for real and who's not. So it's a very exciting time, and I'm excited to get into it for sure.
We have an awesome slate for sure. A couple of top 10 games, a lot of really exciting ones. I know Liam at some point is probably going to talk about Montana and Eastern Washington as well, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Liam, how are we doing?
I'm doing good. You know, anytime you could beat Stanford after losing to Big Brother Fresno State, it's good. So UCLA's back on the right track. I'm sure Bill Walton might know about that. He's probably ecstatic. Excited for this October 5th college football Saturday. I've been looking at it since like week 1 of the season. This slate is loaded. There's so much good stuff going on at the FBS level and FCS level. So very excited.
Absolutely. And we just want to kick it to Dave real fast. Just kind of introduce yourself, let people know what you got going on and,
Sure.
Who you are in case anybody doesn't know.
Sure. Yeah. Dave Pasch is my name, and I'm a broadcaster for ESPN, doing college football, college basketball, and the NBA, and doing Arizona Cardinals games on Sundays. So I've been at ESPN now since 2003, and with the Cardinals since 2002. And I'm just again, I get a kick out of you guys. So glad to be on with you.
Definitely appreciate you being on the show today, spending the time. I know you have a lot of games that you're calling. Like you said, you do all kinds of sports and they're having you all over the place. So what games are you going to be calling this weekend?
So, yeah, we've got Texas against TCU in Fort Worth on Saturday, and then the Cardinals are at the Rams Sunday. So we got 2 3-0 teams on Sunday. And the Texas team, we just had them last week too. Man, they looked impressive, and everybody's talking about them again. This is kind of when we sometimes see them go the other way, when everybody's talking positively about them. How do they handle that? So I'm just as interested as everybody else to see how it all plays out on Saturday.
Definitely. And we want to kick it off and start with our player focus, just one player that we're looking to potentially break out, or, just kind of the matchup that we're looking for if they match up against a certain team or player. Liam, let's start with you. Who are you looking at to have a big day on Saturday?
Yeah, so last week you asked me and you said, you're probably going with the group of 5 guy. I'm not this time. I'm stooping even lower. We're going to the FCS level. You spoke about Montana, Eastern Washington, number 4 Montana against number 6 Eastern Washington. This game's getting the ESPN 2 treatment on Saturday night at 7:30 Pacific. Really looking forward to it. My guy, Eric Barrier, the quarterback for Eastern Washington, is the best player in the FCS. This is a take I've held for a few years, even when Trey Lance was at NDSU. So maybe I wasn't right then, but I'm right now. This guy is a stud, and he's showing that he could do a lot more than just run the ball. He's been passing at such a high level this year. He's 110 for 158 with a passer rating of 190.8. He's thrown for 1,698 yards in 4 games. Him and Eastern scored like 56 points in the first half against Western Illinois a few weeks ago. The offense is explosive. He's thrown 16 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions. I'm looking for him to have a big game against the Montana defense that has really impressed. We saw them go and beat Washington. Who saw that coming? They held Washington to 7 points. They held their other 2 opponents to 7 points each. So in 3 games, they've given up 21 points, exactly 7 per. This is going to be a fun matchup between EWU's high-flying offense against the Montana defense. It's really tough. Rivalry game. Looking for Eric Barrier to have a great game.
Definitely excited to watch that one. The red field's going to be kind of an eyesore, so I might have to put some eye drops in before I watch that one. Brian, who are you looking for? Who's your focus for this week?
Yeah, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm not going with a specific player. I'm going with a group of guys, specifically the Arkansas offensive line. I'm very intrigued by the offensive line. We all know Sam Pittman is and what he does, what he's done at Georgia. What he was at Georgia for a while, and he built that offensive line. Man, that Georgia offensive line was incredible. And he gets his opportunity at Arkansas, and he kind of picks back up where he left off. He's built this offensive line in less than 2 years. I mean, he last year was with COVID and everything. The way he didn't have there was no spring practices or anything like that, and he's doing an amazing job with that offensive line. I'm intrigued to see how they're going to do against this stout Georgia defense, especially that front seven on the defense side of the ball. Just an amazing group of guys for Georgia's defense. So I want to see how do they stack up? How do they, are they able to manage that throughout the entire game and hopefully see what the game's going to look like? But that's what I'm looking forward to this week.
And Dave, how about you? Who are some guys that you're looking for to have a big week?
I think the biggest one for me, and it's not just this Saturday against Kansas State, but next week against Texas and beyond, is Spencer Rattler. What's happened there? We had them week 1 and against Tulane. He played well for a while, and then all of a sudden Tulane got back in the game. He made some mistakes. It was kind of crazy the other night watching the game against West Virginia. He's getting booed. They're, yelling for the backup quarterback. He went from the Heisman favorite to a guy that there are many people wondering if he should be starting on his team. So it's just been such a weird decline through the first 4 games, but I still think he's pretty talented, and I wouldn't be surprised if over the next couple of weeks, not that he gets back into the Heisman conversation, but that maybe we're eating our words, because he's still really one of the most talented guys in college football.
100%. Yeah, Rattler was my Heisman favorite, and early on that wasn't looking like a great pick, but I still think he'll bounce back and have a really solid year as conference play goes on. For me, I'm going with a Cincinnati defensive back, and his name is not Sauce Gardner. I'm going with Arquan Bush. I think he's had a really solid start to the year. And the thing is that, Sauce Gardner doesn't get a lot of action. They don't throw the ball his way for obvious reasons. He's one of the best DBs in college football. But Arquan leads the team in passes defensed and pass breakups, interceptions, that kind of stuff. He's going to need to be a lockdown corner against guys like Kevin Austin and Chris Tyree for Notre Dame. I'm really looking for Cincinnati's defense as a whole to really step up and lead the way there. And we talked about the Heisman picks a little bit. Dave, I want to know who your Heisman front runner is at this point. I'm very curious to know.
Probably Bryce Young. It's so early, but 15 touchdowns, 1 pick, Alabama rolling. It's maybe that's low-hanging fruit to pick the quarterback at Alabama right now, but I don't know. Maybe there's some other guys that'll emerge. We have Bijan Robinson this week, again, at Texas. Somehow, gets rolling here, and they win again big this week and beat Oklahoma. Maybe Robinson, he's got 7 total touchdowns, so we'd really have to get hot. JT Daniels still, if, Georgia wins this week and they, they go undefeated and he has some big games. He barely played against Vanderbilt. That's not going to help his numbers, but I'd have to say Young at this point.
Liam, who's your guy so far?
I love that Dave brought up Bijan, because that dude is just a sensational talent that's going to be tearing up the NFL for years to come. It'd be sick if he could make a Heisman run. I'm going with the other quarterback in the Ole Miss Bama game, though. I'm just going with Matt Corral. The high-flying Lane Kiffin offense is just so fun to watch. I think what really benefits him is that this Heisman vote is so much of what those voters are watching, and they don't really watch every player, as we know from previous years and who was voted for. So just being in this electric offense and a fun team that voters will be watching all year, I think Corral really caters to the audience, as we call him, Matt Golden Corral. He's going to have a golden season, as we've already seen him have. And I think what's also really helping him is picking up these rushing touchdowns. He had those 4 rushing touchdowns the other week. He's not Lamar Jackson, but he's finding a way into the end zone. And I'll never forget him trucking that Louisville defender on Monday night in week 1. He put that kid on the ground, and Corral's just a very fun player to watch.
Brian, Dave mentioned JT Daniels. Is that who you're going with, or are you going with somebody else?
No, I don't think Kirby Smart lets JT Daniels win the Heisman because he doesn't play him enough. I think he takes him out, as soon as Georgia goes up 14-0, here comes Stetson Bennett or Carson Beck in the game. And I think Dave alluded to that. I don't think he's going to play enough to be in that conversation. You turn on Alabama and they're up 62-0, and Bryce Young is still out there throwing dimes. So, if Kirby Smart can kind of let JT, give him a little bit more slack and then just go out there and let him play and extended minutes. And even if they're up by 4 or 5 touchdowns, I mean, he didn't play after the first quarter against Vanderbilt. I mean, yeah, they were up 35-0, but he looked sensational. So it's very interesting to see. We talked a lot about quarterbacks. We have a lot of quarterbacks, at the beginning of the season, we talked a lot about quarterbacks, Spencer Rattler, like Dave alluded to, Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder, these types of guys who kind of were above all else, but they haven't really been that great. This is probably the first year in a long time that we haven't had elite quarterback play, at least throughout the landscape of college football. So I think this year, I think we have to go with Bryce Young. Like it's kind of the easy pick there, or Matt Corral. But kind of a dark horse, I think, is if there's anybody going to be, if there's ever a time for a defensive player to win the Heisman, I would think it'll be this year with the lack of quarterback play, of such elite quarterback play. So maybe a Kayvon Thibodeau can get in there and win a Heisman Trophy this year. I mean, he's been sensational. He did miss a game against Ohio State, but that didn't derail Oregon that much. If Oregon can keep rolling, and Kayvon Thibodeau can be a big part of that defense, I could see him being at least get invited to New York City and maybe possibly sneaking enough votes. I still think it's an offensive award at this point in time. I don't think we'll see a defensive winner, but if there's any better time to do that, I think it's this year. So watch out for Kayvon Thibodeau, but my safe pick, I'm going to go with Bryce Young as well.
Man, Kayvon would really have to pick it up because he did miss that Ohio State game. He actually missed the Stony Brook game after that, and he only played a few snaps against Arizona. So he's really got his work cut out for him. I feel like you'd have to average like 2 sacks, 2.5 sacks a game in order to get that, because like you said, it is an offensive award. And for me, I am going with an offensive player as well. Liam might be happy about this. We talked about it a little bit last night, but I went with Jake Haener as my front runner. I love what I've seen from him so far. 15 touchdowns, 2 picks. I mean, you talk about those guys that kind of have that Heisman moment every year. Like it's usually towards the end of the year, but I think Jake Haener with that comeback, that just gritty performance against UCLA, Liam knows all too much about that. But that was just like a Heisman moment for me. And, he's really taken a step up. Last year, he was one of the top leaders in passing yards per game. He's gotten even better this year. He's got just a loaded receiver core. Ronnie Rivers at running back, Jordan Mims. They're just a really solid team, and I think they could honestly run the table the rest of the way. So my front runner is Jake. I'm calling him Jake Heisman. I almost said it on automatic there just because I've been saying it all year long. But we want to kick it off with the games that we're going to pick. And Brian, you're the Georgia guy. We're going to start with Arkansas and Georgia. Just kind of talk about what you're looking for in that game and who you're picking, if it's even in question.
No, I mean, it's a lot closer than I think a lot of people give Arkansas credit for. I think, the line is opening up at 18.5 or 19.5, and I think that might be a little bit generous towards Georgia. I mean, like I alluded to before on what to watch for this weekend, I'm really interested to see that offensive line for Arkansas. They do lead. They're up there in rushing yards. They know how to run the ball behind that offensive line. I think that's one thing they did very well against Texas A&M is they got up early and they were able to control the game after that. They kind of played keep away with the clock and with everything going forward. So I think if Arkansas can come in and somehow, I think if they do come in and get the ball first and go down the field and score, and which is it's a tall task against this mighty Georgia defense. I don't think I've ever seen Georgia's defense be this good, and I've been a Georgia fan since I was born. So I don't think I've ever seen it this good. They're just sensational. But if Arkansas can come in there and score early, maybe get an early touchdown and go up 7-0 and kind of just manage the game at that point, kind of what Georgia used to do with Jake Fromm, is they take an early lead and then just pound the running backs with Nick Chubb and Sony Michel and DeAndre Swift, and now with their stable backs now, kind of just manage the game at that point. It could be a lot it might be a lot closer than we think. But Arkansas is not built to play to come back. I don't think they're going to be able to come back if they fall early, if they fall behind early. So if Georgia comes in here and goes explosive like they've been the last few weeks, I think it's going to be hard for Arkansas to come back. So I do think Georgia's going to win. I don't think it's going to be a 19-point win. I think maybe I'm looking at a 28-17. But even that, I don't know if Georgia's defense can give up 17 points. But I think it'll be a lot closer. I think it'll be a comfortable win, but it'll be closer than what we think is going to happen. So that's my opinion on that.
And Dave, what is your opinion on Arkansas and Georgia?
Boy, if Arkansas wins this week, maybe they should be number one. I don't see it happening. Georgia, I have a podcast as well. It's it's through the Cardinals brand, but we do cover a lot of things. And Kirk Herbstreit was the guest this week, and we were talking about, he's doing the game on Saturday, and just talking about how, Georgia's always had talent, but it just seems like right now they have more dudes than ever. I mean, that defense, I just don't know how Arkansas is going to score against them. So I think Georgia wins that. If this year is any indication, Arkansas keeps it close for a while, but I just feel like, Georgia has way too much talent not to win that game and win it rather easily.
Liam, we go to you. Are you going 3 for 3 here? Are you picking Georgia too?
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. I have Georgia winning 27-10. I just don't really see how Arkansas is going to be able to move the ball in this stout Georgia defense. Credit to Arkansas, though, for being 4-0 right now with elite wins over Texas and Texas A&M. Now they're really in this daunting gauntlet part of their schedule where it's hard to find wins. They had A&M last week, shocked us, won that. Georgia this week, Ole Miss next week, Auburn in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It's tough for them. We'll see how Arkansas goes about their business, but definitely been impressed by them.
And one last point to what Dave brought up too is this is a lot. So when Kirby Smart had his first number 1 class, was it a couple years ago? This is that senior class. So I think that's an attest to how good they are. Is because that freshman class of 2017, when they had the number 1 recruiting class in the country, they're now seniors, and some of them are super seniors now because they had that extra year of eligibility. So to Dave's point, I think that's why we're seeing that Georgia defense be so good, is because they've been in the building for so long, and a lot of them came back, like Jordan Davis. He came back for his 5th year. So I think that shows a lot to Georgia's defense. Is they've been in the building for a long time, and they built a great foundation, and it's showing now that the holes are definitely closed at this point for Georgia's defense.
We've talked so highly about Georgia's defense, and like Liam said, credit to Arkansas too. I mean, they've had a couple really impressive wins, and we talked about before that Arkansas Texas A&M game about how good Texas A&M's defense was and how they were the best passing defense in the country, and Arkansas just kind of tore them apart a little bit. Now, I think this, like you said, I think this Georgia defense is a bit different. There's a lot more talent. There's a lot more dudes, as Dave Pasch said. And Georgia, when you look at the numbers, I mean, they've allowed 5.8 points per game through the first 4, 181 yards a game. And the thing that shocked me the most is Arkansas has they've churned up 261 rushing yards per game. Georgia's allowed 264 total this season. So I don't think Arkansas can keep up that run game that they've kind of built their name on this year. I think Georgia dominates. I've got them 28-7. I don't think they give up more than 10 points at the most. I think their defense is that good, and I don't see Arkansas kind of settling in easily in Athens. I think it's just going to be too much for them, and I think we could kind of see the start of, like you said, they have Ole Miss next week. I just think it's going to be too much for them. I kind of wish we had Andrew on, because I know he likes, he's talked a lot about our next game, the Michigan-Wisconsin game. But we want to start with Liam. What's your take on Michigan versus Wisconsin? Kind of a big one for both teams.
My take is just what Wisconsin did last week is just awful. It just is. And I still think they win this week. I think they get back to 500, go 2-2. I'm taking Wisconsin to win 23-17. It's something I've said the last 2 weeks, going back to Oklahoma State against Kansas State last week, and then West Virginia against Virginia Tech 2 weeks ago. Strictly picking because of the betting line. Strict reasoning here why I'm going with Wisconsin. They're plus half a point right now. A lot of money is going to be on Michigan. A lot of people are going to back Michigan. So literally picking Wisconsin because of the line.
I'm going to pick Michigan just because of how I think we've underrated how good their offense is. And it's not just because of like Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins. Like obviously that's impressive, but I think what's the most impressive to me is that they're the only team in the country that has not turned the ball over and through 4 games. I think that's really impressive given how much they run it. They've only thrown it 65 times. They've run it 186 times. That's really impressive to me. And they're averaging over 40 points per game. Now, they've played Washington and Western Michigan and, Rutgers. So maybe not the best opponents, but still it's very impressive. And the other thing is that they're one of only 4 teams to allow 1 sack or fewer. They've only allowed 9 tackles for loss. I mean, everywhere you look on this offense, maybe minus the passing game, just how clean football they play. They don't have a lot of penalties. They don't turn the ball over. It's very, very clean. But when you talk about Wisconsin's defense, I mean, that is a really tough defense. And I think they did their job against Notre Dame. I mean, toward the end of the game, they were kind of getting some good field position because of Graham Mertz's turnovers. But I like Michigan in this one, in a close one, 21-17. I don't think Michigan's, running game does what it's been doing all year. I think it slowed down a little bit. What we need to see is if Caden McNamara can throw the ball effectively, if Wisconsin does shut down the run, which I expect they will. Can Michigan convert in the red zone? Wisconsin has one of the best red zone defenses in the country. So I'm really looking for those couple things, but I do think Michigan pulls it out. Dave, where are you going with this one?
Yeah, for Michigan, man, this game feels huge, especially with Wisconsin. I think Paul Chryst is 5-7 in his last 12 games. Wisconsin not looking good early on. I think for Michigan this is the game where we know if they're really back. This is a game that Jim Harbaugh seemingly has lost in the last 5 years. Whenever you start to believe in Michigan, they do something that makes you say, well, it's just another team that, maybe is 8-4. But if they can win this game, they obviously have tougher games down the road, but at least it would be some confirmation that they're better. And they have, the passing game has to be better. They're obviously running the ball great. Last week was a little scary. Greg Schiano, you knew Rutgers was going to be better and much improved, but I was a little surprised Michigan didn't pull away in that game last week, but I still think they win this game against Wisconsin. I don't know if it'll be a double figure win because I don't know that there's going to be a ton of points in this game. It's just my opinion, but I do think Michigan will win, maybe by a field goal.
And Brian, we go to you. What is your pick for Michigan and Wisconsin?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Michigan as well. I think it's going to be a game of possession, basically who can maintain possession the longest. I think it's going to have the best chance to win. And I don't trust Graham Mertz at all. I don't trust Wisconsin's offense at all to be able to keep the ball. And, he's thrown 6 interceptions. He has 1 touchdown pass. Graham Mertz has. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a game of possession. I think Michigan is going to be able, if they're able to cause some turnovers and maintain possession of the ball for quite a bit. I think, like Dave said, I think it'll be a field goal game, low scoring. And that's kind of the thing with Wisconsin this year. It looks like that's what they've been the MO for them is we saw that against Penn State in week 1. It was very low scoring, very just, a slog. It wasn't very exciting. And there was, even last week against Notre Dame, it kind of got away from them late and really wasn't that exciting for them either. But so I think it's a game of possession. I think Michigan will do a better job of that, do a better job of keeping the ball and not coughing it up. So I'm going to go with Michigan. I think it'll be maybe 17-10, something like that. That's where I'm going with that one.
We go to the group of 5, and we go to the group of 5 mastermind himself. Liam, we're going to start with you for Nevada and Boise State. On the Smurf turf. Who are you picking for this one?
Give me Nevada or give me death. That's that famous quote, right? I'm not tripping. That's the famous quote. Look, Nevada they've struggled on offense so far this season. I'm really just dumbfounded by it. As I spoke all offseason, they have one of the most talented passing attack groups in the country, and they're not being aggressive enough. They're not utilizing their weapons enough. Romeo Doubs only has 1 touchdown this year. What is that? They have a tough schedule to start. And I still thought they would go 12-0, 11-1. Like, I'm so high on this team. I'm taking Nevada 38-30. I just need them to be more aggressive. They weren't aggressive enough at Kansas State. That hurt them so much. They were running the ball too much. There's too much wildcat. You have Carson Strong. You have the guy that really could be the QB1 in this draft class. He's that dang good. And you're going wildcat and taking the ball out of his hands. What are we doing? We saw him make a throw against Kansas State where Romeo Doubs burned double coverage, and that ball was right in the bucket. Strong is such a tremendous talent. I just need them to let him throw 40, 45 times. Let him hit Doubs for 10 plus targets. Find Elijah Cooks in the red zone. Cole Turner, step up. Like, he's had some tough drops. They're a very good team. They're not playing to their potential. And you're speaking up Fresno State as a team that can run the table. These teams, Fresno State and Nevada, play in a few weeks. That game's going to be absolutely nuts. I need Nevada to beat Boise State here, rattle off a few wins, and for that Nevada Fresno State game to be huge. But I just want to speak to both sides here. Nevada will be better when the ball's in Carson Strong and Romeo Doubs' hands. Just get those to the ball and you're going to win games. Boise State, if you just get Khalil Shakir the ball, you're going to be much more successful. And that's what we saw last week. They got him his 10 catches, I think, for 100 whatever yards and the touchdown, I believe. If they get the ball in Shakir's hands, it's just a dynamic talent and another future NFL stud receiver. They're going to win games. So we'll see what happens. I'm just going Nevada 38-30. I'm hoping that they call a more aggressive game.
Brian, who are you feeling in Nevada, Boise State?
Man, I was gonna say Boise, but Liam just did a pretty good argument there. I think I'm gonna change my pick to Nevada. I think Carson Strong is probably one of the best quarterbacks in this class, and I think I just trust him more to pull out a win. I know they're in Boise, and it's obviously a hard place to play, but I think I was really going with Boise for a while, but I think I'm gonna switch it up. I think I'm gonna go with Nevada on this one.
Dave, we're gonna wrap it up with you. How are you feeling for this one?
I think Boise State's going to win. I just feel like they're the better team overall. They've got a big one with BYU on the road next week. This is usually about the time they kind of get rolling. It's been a little bit of a disappointing start for them. So but I think they're the better team, and I think they win this game.
The last 2 times I've picked Boise State games, I've picked incorrectly. I picked them to beat Oklahoma State. And then I picked Utah State to beat Boise State. That was a dumb pick. I'm not really sure why I went with that one. I'm not going to make that mistake a third time. I'm going to go with Boise State for this one. I do think this is going to be a really entertaining game, like Liam talked up. The one thing I really want to see, though, is can Boise State get that run game going? Can they get George Halani going? Cyrus Habibi-Likio, my guy, can they get him going? I think Carson Strong is going to have a really good game. He has played on the Smurf turf before, even though he's never played against Boise State in his career. He's a famous Idaho Potato Bowl legend, so I feel like he's going to have a really good game. But I think Boise State, I do think they're the better team right now. I'm going to go with them 34-31. Now we go to Texas and TCU. Dave, you're calling this game. We're not going to have you pick, just for the sake of keeping everything, legally where it should be. But I want to know what you're looking for. What's kind of some stuff that's popped out on tape, and just what you're looking forward to.
Well, I think it goes back to Bijan Robinson again. We highlighted him at the top of our telecast last week, and he delivered. Casey Thompson played great, man. For Sark to make that change early in the year, even though Hudson Card played well, just not good enough. He said, for whatever reason, our team, when Casey Thompson's on the field, we produce. He made the change, and there is a noticeable difference. Those guys, and Hudson Card's a really good player. I think he's going to be really good. But they follow Casey Thompson. He's been around. He's been the backup. And they've got, some really good young talent. Xavier Worthy, Keelan Robinson, and obviously, Bijan Robinson. TCU, I don't know what's going on with them defensively, but TCU has, owned this series for the most part. Beat them last year when Texas was in the top 10, won 6 of the last 7 meetings with Texas. So obviously we always hope it's a close game, right? Close game, better for TV, better for us. I'm not sure that we'll have that though.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be interesting to see. Liam, I know this is the game that's at the top of your schedule here. You were hyping this up last night when we were talking. Who are you going with in this one?
Yeah, I can't wait to watch this game, just like I couldn't wait to watch TCU play SMU last week. Just another fun early morning game for me on the West Coast that I get to watch. I'm going with Texas. A lot of points, close score. That'll make Dave and the rest of his crew happy. I'm going Texas 41-35. The thing I'm looking for here is obviously the running backs. It's not just Bijan, it's TCU's star, Zach Evans, who I got a lot of hate for having him in my top 5 running backs entering the season. Now he's showing that he's legit and he's going to be a star for years to, another year after this one, because then he's off to the NFL, but he's going to be a star for a good while. He's averaging 8 yards a carry. His contact balance is ridiculous. We saw that on display last week against SMU. He riled off a 35 4-yard run after just incredible balance he has played. And then Bijan, it's not just his running ability. This is going to make him so much money in the NFL. His receiving ability, he's averaging 18.1 yards per catch. What is that? He's a sensational talent, man. He's so slippery and elusive. I can't wait to watch these two running backs just go toe to toe and try to outdo each other.
Your score prediction was extremely close to mine. I have Texas 42-34. I think this might be the most fun matchup of that early slate, and there are a lot of really good games. I do think Arkansas and Georgia and Michigan, Wisconsin are going to be kind of slugfest. I think if you're an offensive guy, you got to tune into this one because this is going to be really fun. Casey Thompson, like Dave said, I think he seems to be the right fit after all the drama early in the year. 70 points on Texas Tech. Now, TCU's defense hasn't been very good, but they're not Texas Tech bad, in my opinion, from what I've seen. But I still like all the pieces on the Longhorns offense. I think a little bit more than TCU's. Now, Zach Evans is the guy. He is a dude, but I need to see a little bit more from Max Duggan in that passing offense. I just think that Texas has more pieces that can do damage against that TCU defense. So I expect Bijan Robinson to have his best day of the year. I'm going Texas. Brian, who are you going with as a Texas fan of you like Texas football, not the Horn specifically, but just you eat that stuff up. So who are you going with this one?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Texas as well. I think that I think I alluded to when I was talking about Wisconsin and Michigan, how it's going to be a game of possession and is very slow and top of slugfest there. I think it's kind of the same thing here, but I think it's whoever has the ball last is going to end up winning this game. Yeah, Casey Thompson, man, he's a stud. I enjoy watching him play. I think Steve Sarkisian was a right hire for that program as well. I think he's done an amazing job so far. They did have that hiccup against Arkansas, but we've seen what Arkansas has become since then. So I think that's more of a testament to Arkansas than it is to Texas. And so yeah, I do think Texas ends up winning this game. I think Zach Evans' his talent is going to make it very interesting. Speaking of Zach Evans, I'm kind of upset that he's not in a Georgia uniform. Imagine him in a Georgia backfield with the rest of those running backs and that offense that they have now, and the whole drama with his letter of intent. But anyway, that's near here or there. But yeah, I think Texas is going to win this one. It's nice to see somebody other than Sam Ehlinger under center for Texas. I mean, he's been there since 2005, it feels like. So, but I think Texas is going to win. I think it's kind of close to you guys, 42-35. I think they win late, maybe last minute field goal to win. That's what I think. I mean, last minute touchdown to win.
Now we have another top 10 matchup, and it's really exciting that a game like this, a group of 5 powerhouse against, such a storied program, this is getting the hype that it deserves. Liam, we're going to start with you with Cincinnati against Notre Dame. Who are you going with in this one?
Well, I think everyone would expect me to pick Cincy here, but I am taking Notre Dame 27-17. I think Desmond Ridder is going to struggle early. We saw him struggle mightily. Him and that offense were not in sync when they played at Indiana. Things turned when McFadden on the Indiana was forced out of the game due to targeting. Bad rule. Talk about that too much. Won't talk about it here. But I just think Kyle Hamilton is going to make things real difficult. They have other super talented defenders are going to make life difficult for Ritter and the rest of his offense. I think the Cincy defense is going to play well, though. 27-17, I just think Notre Dame's just going to be too much in the end.
Dave, I know you'll be tuned into Texas and TCU, but what are you looking for in Cincinnati, Notre Dame, and who are you picking?
Well, Liam mentioned that Indiana game. We did that game. It was it was interesting to see how everything totally changed, because Desmond Ritter did not play great in that game. They're still pretty good on defense, and Desmond Ritter is a really good player. I think to beat Notre Dame, he's going to have to be great. And I feel like at some point Notre Dame's really going to get the run game going. I just feel like it's this week. But I think this is going to be a really good game. And I think it's probably, a 16-13, 17-14 type of game. But I think Notre Dame's going to win.
Yeah, I definitely remembered that Cincinnati-Indiana game. And, I think Ritter will have, a little bit better start. I kind of expect him to be a little bit better in this go around. But I'll give my pick shortly. I want to give Brian the floor here because I know he's kind of our expert on this one. So who are you going with in this one?
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to Notre Dame's defense. I think they were very pedestrian the first couple of weeks. We saw what they did against Florida State, that first week of the season, and kind of they were almost upset by Florida State. And we see what Florida State has become since then, and it's not good. So you kind of looked at Notre Dame at that point, like, here we go again. The same Notre Dame team gets very overrated, top 10 pulled to begin the season, and then they fall off the tracks, or they don't fall off the tracks and make it to the playoff and get demolished by Clemson or Georgia or Alabama. But they've kind of after that Florida State game, they've been able to kind of pick it up. I think they've got better every week that they've played, especially that defense. That defense has looked very good. They looked very good last week against Wisconsin. I don't know if Cincinnati has seen a team like Notre Dame. I think the closest, and I keep bringing it up, and I know I promise I'm not being a homer, but last year in the bowl against Georgia, I think that's kind of the team that kind of defense, and they played significantly well against that team last year. So I'm very excited. It was very hard for me. I kind of went back and forth on this a lot. I think it's going to be a close game as well. I do think it's going to be kind of what Dave said, a 17-14, 21-17 type matchup. I think Cincinnati is going to eke it out at the end. I do like Desmond Ritter a lot. I think if you give Desmond Ritter the ball last, I think he might be able to march down the field and score late. Or I do trust that defense to make that one final stop at the end. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati, 21-17, 17-14, around there. But it'd be a low scoring game for sure.
I actually kind of expect this one to be a little bit higher scoring. I had a higher score in this one. I think this is a huge game for both teams, right? You talked about an opportunity for Notre Dame to kind of keep proving people wrong and to tack on strong wins. After the Florida State win wasn't all that impressive, now that Florida State's fallen apart. The Wisconsin win, I don't know what's going to happen with Wisconsin, but I don't expect them to really hop back into the rankings and be as high as they were. The Toledo game, the Purdue game, they kind of struggled a little bit. And it's huge for Cincinnati, right? Because it's an opportunity for them to prove that they are a contender despite, being a group of 5 team. So if they can win in South Bend, I mean, that might be their best regular season win in program history. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I do think Notre Dame's going to win this one in a close one. And Dave talked about it. I think, Notre Dame needs to find that run game, which has been really surprising because Kyron Williams in years past has been just an absolutely fantastic running back. And he's been more of a kind of a pass catcher than a guy who's really going to hurt you on the ground. So I think they do find that run game against Cincinnati, and I think they pull this one out. I got Notre Dame 30-28.
And just one last point before we move on is this is the best chance for a group of 5 team to make the playoff that we've seen and we might see moving forward. So if Cincinnati can end up winning this game, I think that that clears the path for them to make the playoff. That gives them that signature win. So obviously we got to know we have to figure out what's going to happen in the SEC with Georgia and Alabama and Ole Miss and Florida and all that. What's going to happen there, but the sky's kind of open for a team like Cincinnati to make the playoff, for finally a group of 5 teams to sneak in there. So this is a big win for them, and that I think that's going to carry them to victory.
What's interesting, you brought that up. The the playoff predictor that we use, it says, I think right now Cincinnati has like a 9% chance going into the game, but if they win and go undefeated, it goes up to like 70. I'm not sure I believe that. I think if they beat Notre Dame and win out, they'll have the committee's attention, but they're still going to need help. I just feel like the committee, I just have a hard time seeing a group of 5 team get in unless you've got chaos going on in some of the other conferences and Cincinnati runs the table.
And real quick, you do speak to chaos there. There's been some talk about this potentially being a light version of what we saw in 2007. I personally hope that we do have a 2007 V2 on our hands, but that would really help since we go a long way. Maybe we see a curse of number 2 or number 3 this year and have some fun.
I'm talking about another team that's that could down the line with some huge wins get into the playoff conversation is Ole Miss, and they face no tougher opponent than Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Brian, I want to start with you. You're kind of the SEC guy. Who are you looking for to kind of break out in this one, and what's your pick?
I mean, it's easy to go with Matt Corral. I'm very excited to see Matt Corral play in this game. I've been circling since that Monday night when they played against Louisville. I've had Ole Miss on my radar. I've been watching them closely, and I think they're very, very good. I mean, it's Alabama though. It seems it always happens where teams are coming out strong. They come out strong. They come out very, they have a chance to win. Though they have a chance to they have a top five team, and then they run into Alabama, and then they just get derailed. Not only do they lose to Alabama, they lose 2 or 3 games down the line as well. For some reason, as soon as they hit Alabama and they get demolished, they just completely sucks the wind out of their sails and just demoralizes that team, and then it just goes haywire from there. But I'm very interested to see Matt Corral play against this Alabama defense. That it's the story of Alabama. They've always had a very stout defense, and it's very interesting. If this game wasn't in Tuscaloosa, I might be inclined to pick Ole Miss. I really, really want to pick Ole Miss, but I just can't with it being in Tuscaloosa. But Alabama again. I don't know how Nick Saban is. He's insane. I don't understand how you can go in a 4-year period or almost a 5-year period. You go from Jalen Hurts to Tua Tagovailoa to Mac Jones to Bryce Young in succession without any sort of, we see what's going on with Clemson right now. They haven't had that. And it's insane how it just continues to happen. I think it'll be a closer game than a lot of people think. I think I'm going to go a very maybe 35-31, something like that. And I think maybe Alabama pulls away late like they usually do. But I think it'll be a very close game. And if Ole Miss can kind of, keep their foot on the pedal throughout the game, I think they might have a chance. But I just can't see it happening in Tuscaloosa. So give me Alabama on this one.
It's those little Debbie cookies, man. It's those oatmeal cookies for Nick Saban. That's what keeps him going. Liam, is there any chance that you pick Ole Miss on this one?
No, but I'll root for them real hard. Love watching Ole Miss teams. NWO, those nasty wideouts. We've seen Elijah Moore, DK Metcalf, Mr. Lodge, AJ Brown. They have so much talent wide receiver all the time. They do have a stud right now in Dontario Drummond. I don't project the same NFL stardom. He's actually, I think, 24 years old right now, just pretty nuts. The receiver I'm looking at on Ole Miss, Jonathan Mingo, I think he's the next NWO. They've got big fan of his. 2 defenders I'm looking for in this game are on Alabama. LeBrian Ray, who finally played last week. He's been banged up his entire career. I think he's a force on the defensive line. Then Malachi Moore, defensive back, absolute star. I'm picking Alabama 35-34. I'm rooting for Ole Miss. I'm hoping that we could see Lane throw his clipboard again. Need that content. And just wanted to say thank you to UCLA for not recruiting Pasadena native Bryce Young. Really good decision.
Dave, let's go to you with Ole Miss and Alabama. Is this going to be a game that, once you get back, you're going to be tuned into?
Oh, yeah, definitely. What was the final last year? 63-48, something crazy like that. Ole Miss scored, but they couldn't stop them. I think it'll be similar. I don't know. It's not going to be that high scoring, but I think it'll be something like, 48-34. I think Alabama I think Alabama and Georgia to me are in a class by themselves right now. So I think Ole Miss can hang with them, but I just feel like Alabama's offense, it used to be, we'd always talk about their defense, but their offense the last 4 years has been unstoppable, and I don't see it changing.
Yeah, it seems like every time we pick an Alabama game, it's always like we talk up this one team, Ole Miss. You talked about Florida a couple of weeks ago, like, they're really good. They do this, this, this. And then it's Alabama. And, you just can't really, unless it's like on the road. Like I feel like Brian said, you kind of feel a little bit more inclined to kind of play around with the idea of picking against Alabama. That's never usually a good idea. I'm not going to go with that here. I'm going Alabama 38-28. I just think that, Ole Miss is going to have a really good offensive day. I think we talked about Cincinnati getting the attention. I think Ole Miss will get the attention like Florida did last week. Alabama's defense needs to step up, like you talked about. I think, that linebacker core needs to stop the run because Ole Miss does it all offensively. They're one of the few teams that average over 300 yards passing and 250 yards rushing. I think Utah State was one of those. They kind of dipped after their loss last week. I think it's just Ole Miss and UCF that are in that ballpark. But I think Ole Miss is going to have a really good day. I think Alabama is going to have a better one. I like Alabama in this one. And Dave, I want to go back to you for Auburn and LSU. This one's going to be kind of interesting because, who knows who's going to start for Auburn at quarterback, and LSU, they're still kind of figuring things out. Looking like a better team than last year. Who do you got in this one?
Seems like LSU's starting to figure it out. I'm going LSU. Auburn should have lost last week, and yeah, they're a mess at quarterback right now. So I think a late game in Baton Rouge, it seems like LSU's starting to come together. Certainly look like a better team this year. So I'm going with the Tigers, LSU in this game.
Well, Tigers, yeah. Liam, who are you going with for Auburn and LSU?
Well, how many times do we see it? And it happens in college basketball too, of course. How many times do we see a team go out and just struggle against an inferior opponent? And it's just inexcusable. It doesn't make any sense. And then they come out the next week and they knock off a much better team. Why on earth am I even picking Auburn here? I don't know. I'm picking Auburn to win 27-24. Maybe I got confused by the Tiger logos. I have no clue. I think TJ Finley actually will have a solid game. I liked the tools that I saw from him last week. I think we are recording this on Tuesday. It'll be out on Thursday. Maybe on Wednesday there is quarterback news and it's Bo Nix starting, but I'm approaching this as if Finley is starting. 6'7" quarterback is fun to watch. Looking for him to have the chip on his shoulder, revenge factor here against his former Tigers of LSU. And then, we speak about everything podcast we do. Kayshon Boutte on LSU, the best receiver in the country that doesn't play for the Buckeyes. Guy is a monster. And again, I got hate for having him as my number 3 receiver in the country entering the year. Come on. This guy is an absolute joy to watch. He's going to be a freak in the NFL. And he does face a tough, stingy Auburn defense that has some good DBs. Looking at Smoke Monday and Nehemiah Pritchett to make some big plays in this game, maybe pick off Max Johnson. Hopefully Max doesn't throw the ball backwards like he did against UCLA. Still don't know what that was about, but it was sick, even though it was a complete debacle. But going with Auburn 27-24, and I don't know why.
Brian, who are you going with, and do you know why?
I do know why. I am going to go with LSU. Death Valley at night. It's probably one of the hardest places to play in college football. It's just incredible. But I do think that the storyline with TJ Finley is very intriguing. Playing your former team, on the road in your former stadium. If he gets to start, I don't know. We want to bring up the story that happened last week. It's Georgia Southern. Congratulations, Georgia State. Sorry, yeah, Georgia State. Congratulations, you beat Georgia State. It's I don't know, but. If that might propel Auburn to kind of go up and win. The only reason I would pick Auburn is because I need as many ranked teams to keep bolstering Georgia's schedule. Even though Georgia looks incredible, but you can never beat too many ranked teams. So I'd be nice to Auburn to stay ranked, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think LSU is going to win. I think it's going to be 34-21, something like that. So that's where I'm going with that one.
Yeah, that Georgia State game. I only watched the last few minutes of it because I don't know why you would watch that one from the jump. But that Georgia State game proved to me that Auburn is not quite as legitimate a team as I expected. They were shutting teams out, winning 60-something-0 the first two, and now those were kind of cupcake games, and I expected this one to be that too. I thought it was impressive for Georgia State to stay in it as long as they did, but Bo Nix has kind of failed to impress me since that Oregon game that we're not going to talk about. And TJ Finley is, if he's the next best option, I don't think they're that much better, but I do think there's a little bit more of that pop, that kind of energy on the offense. He was bouldering dudes on and then just chucking it. That guy is talented, but they need guys like Tank Bigsby to go off. I think Tank Bigsby's going to need to have his best day in order to stay in this one. But I like LSU a little bit more than the other guys did. I like him 28-10 in this one. I don't think Auburn.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. And I just, one last thing I wanted to say from everyone else as well is with LSU is they really need to show, especially Coach Georgia, they need to show that they can get out of that shadow of the 2019 season. That kind of just, it feels like that kind of lingers. That's kind of lingering around that program. It's just to have that historic season and then basically just one and done and immediately go back, kind of fall back off the face of the earth on that. So I really think having a win like this, against a ranked opponent, kind of get you back, kind of start building that confidence again, and kind of get you out of that shadow of the 2019 season with Joe Burrow and Joel Brady. And I think that's going to be very good for the program and very good for Coach O, because I think he's a good coach, and you don't want to make it seem that he only won because he had that historic offense with a historic quarterback and Joe Brady. So that's going to be fun to watch as well.
We have got 3 more games left. We're going back to the SEC for one more. We want to speed it up just a little bit. Dave, we're going to start with you with Florida and Kentucky. Do you think Kentucky could pull off the upset here?
I know everybody's talking about like this is going to be a great game. I don't. I think Florida. I think Florida is better than people think. The game against Alabama proved it. They pulled away against Tennessee. It seems like they've figured out their quarterback situation. I think Florida's actually going to roll. I may end up being wrong and Kentucky wins this game, but I just feel like maybe we're sleeping on Florida a little bit. So I think Florida's going to win. I think it'll be something like 27-10, something along those lines. I don't think it'll be very close, and I think Florida will win thanks to kind of Emory Jones now really grabbing a hold of that, running and throwing the ball. Just absolutely torched Tennessee last week.
Yeah, I definitely think he had his best game after people were kind of like questioning, if he was the guy, should Anthony Richardson be in there, which I still think they should use him, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Liam, who are you going with Florida and Kentucky?
Yeah, we could get into that right now. Anthony Richardson needs more playing time. I know he's been hurt, but he's just an absolute joy to watch. And I think he's well deserving and has shown that he should be the QB1 of this team, even though Emory did have a good week last week. I am in complete agreement with Dave. I think Florida is a much better team than they're perceived to be. I have them winning this one 35-14. I do expect them to roll. Kaiir Elam, one of the true shutdown corners in the country. And yeah, just Florida rolls.
Brian, let's go to you. Who you picking? I know you had Kentucky. You were the only guy who voted Kentucky in the top 25. Are you going with them this week?
I really, as much as I want to, I can't. I need to, as much as I would love to see Florida lose, which I'm the number one Florida Gator hater, but Kentucky hasn't beat Florida at home since 1986. That's incredible. That's insane to think about. You haven't beat an opponent in your own house since 1986. So almost 40 years now. So I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think Florida wins. I think they win it, fairly convincingly. Maybe it's a close game and then they pull away late, or they're leading big and then they kind of just get lackadaisical and they come back a little bit at the end. So I think the score maybe like 28-17, but I could see it being like 28-7 or 28-3 for a while before they pick it up a little bit. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be close. I think Florida wins this one as well.
Yeah, I like Florida in this one as well. And for one reason in particular, Florida has the most rushing yards in the country by a team that's not a military school. They average over 320 rushing yards a game. They have so many weapons that can run the ball too. And Kentucky, they have a really good run defense, but I just don't think it's going to hold up. If Kentucky's going to stay in this one, I think it's because of Chris Rodriguez. I think he's a fantastic running back. I don't really like their passing offense as much as I thought. Now, it's still better than when they had Terry Wilson, but I just don't think it's going to be very effective against that Florida secondary. I like Florida 41-17. We're going to go with a Big 12 matchup. We're going to go back there for Baylor and Oklahoma State. This one's a ranked matchup. Didn't really think that was going to happen in week 5, but Dave, I want to start with you. Who are you liking in this one?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised Texas wasn't ranked this week. 3-1 with one loss against a top 10 team. I'm a little surprised that they're not ahead of Baylor and Oklahoma State. I think they're better than both those teams. I don't know that we're going to know for sure if either team is real, even after this game, Baylor, Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State wins. I think they're probably the better team. I think offensively, they're better. But I think Baylor's a good story that it seems like they're back and at least being competitive again. But I'm not sure how good either team really is. I'm wondering if at the end of the year, both teams are in the middle of the pack in the Big 12.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting take. I think Oklahoma State's had some really impressive wins. Baylor, they're kind of back, like you said. So I think this could kind of show what each team is capable of, but maybe not prove how the rest of their season will go. Brian, who are you going with in Baylor and OK State?
I'm going to go with Baylor. I'm just keeping it short. I really like Baylor. I've always had a soft spot for Baylor for a while. So, I don't really have a lot of interest in this game. It's just one of those, it's a ranked game, but like Dave said, I don't think either team is going to be significantly good, down the stretch. So I'm going to go with Baylor, just because I like Baylor, honestly.
And Liam, will go to you.
Yeah, we're picking a classic truck stops conference this game. I have Oklahoma State winning 24-17, and it's honestly, I don't think they're very good. I don't think Baylor's very good. Kansas State, I don't think they're very good. I'm picking Oklahoma State strictly because of our guest 2 weeks ago, Jack Mack of Barstool, who had an insane take that Oklahoma State is going to be in the playoff talks eventually. So I am literally only picking Oklahoma State because I want his insane prediction to become true.
Okay, I'm not as high as on Oklahoma State as Jack Mack is. I'm actually going with Baylor in this one too. And I think the reason why is because they can win in a number of different ways, and that's kind of impressed me. They can score a lot of points, but their defense did a really good job against Iowa State. And they got outgained 479-282 against Iowa State, but they had 6 fewer penalties. Iowa State did, and they had the ball for a long time. But I think what Baylor did that impressed me was they got timely stops, they got timely turnovers, they forced punts on long drives, and they converted when they had really good field position. So, I think Baylor. What's that?
I was just gonna say Iowa State is who we thought they were.
That's true. Yeah, I know you've been on top of that all season long. I don't think they can repeat the same performance against Oklahoma State in Stillwater. I don't think they're going to, offensively kind of struggle. I think they'll do a little bit better. I like Baylor 37-34. And we're going to wrap it up with the guy who's wearing the track jacket for UCLA. We're going with Arizona State and UCLA. Liam, what are you looking for, and who do you got?
Yeah, love wearing the jacket with all UCLA's basketball national championships on it. Definitely not football. I have a 34-27 score for the other team, picking ASU. I Chase Lucas back, DeMonte Trianum, Brian Thompson. That's huge for them. All 3 guys are big time players for them. I'm really high on Chase Lucas. I think he's going to make life difficult for DTR. DTR is also coming into the game banged up, shoulder. I'm not even sure which shoulder it is. I don't know if he knows which shoulder is hurt because there's been weird discussions about this. Possibly both shoulders are hurt. I have no clue. Chip Kelly is going to need to design a big time run. He's going to have to be huge in the run design game here. Merlin Robertson's the guy I'm also watching for ASU at linebacker. I think he's going to be very important in the run stuff game and pass coverage. I think he's a future NFL player. We did see him get stripped by Tyler Algier the other week, which impressive play by Algier. But I think UCLA needs to get Cam Brown the ball more at receiver. I think to win this game, they have to be very effective on the ground and kind of limit their passing attack. When they do pass, we are going to see them use their infamous crossers play that they killed LSU with and used a bunch against Fresno State, Stanford. And then Sean Ryan on UCLA. Best offensive lineman on the West Coast.
Brian, who are you going with in this one?
I'm going to go with UCLA. I still think they're very good. I know they had that stumble against Fresno State, but I don't think, there was a lot of hype around them after the win against LSU. And I don't think it's gone away just because they lost to Fresno State. It's definitely not as hype as it used to be, but I still like UCLA a lot. DTR, I think he's a very good, he's very athletic. I really like him a lot. So I'm going to go with UCLA. I'm probably not going to be awake for me, but Pac-12 after dark gets crazy, man. So the crazy things have happened at midnight. So we'll see what happens there, but I'm going to go with UCLA.
Dave, are you going to stay up for this one? And who do you like?
I think Arizona State's going to win this game. I think it'll be high scoring. I think the Pac-12 needs UCLA to win this game to get a second team in the conversation because of that win over LSU. It helps the Pac-12 if LSU keeps winning. But I think Arizona State wins it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 42-28 type score. I don't know. The Fresno State game, I thought UCLA was going to win that game. And then the way it kind of finished, I just wonder. I think Chip Kelly's done a good job there to at least this year, getting the Bruins at least relevant again. And I think the Pac-12 really needs UCLA to keep winning. But I don't think it's going to happen this weekend.
I think I need them to keep winning because I picked UCLA to win the South, and I think this would definitely put them in position to do that. I think Arizona State needs to play a lot cleaner football. You saw against BYU, they had a ton of penalties. I think it was 16 penalties. They had 17 points. I do think that Arizona State's offense needs to pick it up in terms of passing. We know they can run the ball. They get Trainum back. Rashad White is a monster. But I kind of need to see that, down the field action with the passing game. Same with UCLA. Now they have those threats like Dulcich and Cal Phillips, but I do think that, it's going to come down to those two quarterbacks and who can make the plays at the end of the game. I'm actually going with UCLA in this one, in a close one. I'm going 38-35 UCLA. And that's going to do it for us. Dave, I want to, give the floor to you to plug your socials. Where can people find you, and what do you got going on?
Sure. So I already talked about the games going on with college football and NFL. You can follow along on Twitter at Dave Pasch. And as I mentioned, about a month and a half ago, started a new podcast that's through the Arizona Cardinals brand, but we've had on James Rujay, who's an actor from Psych and A Million Little Things. We're going to have some basketball people on. It's not just NFL. It's not just Cardinals, even though we've had Kurt Warner, Cliff Kingsbury, Buda Baker. We've had Steve Levy and Brian Greasy from ESPN on, Mina Kimes, Scott Hansen, the host of NFL Red Zone. So I love it. It's something I haven't done in a long time, the talk show type of format. So it's kind of cool for me, even though I'm mostly asking questions. It's just kind of fun to interview people and be in that role. So I'm enjoying that, along with, with basketball starting here soon, man. I'm going to be crazy busy, but I love it. And I appreciate you guys having me on.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure. We hope you had fun. We hope it didn't take too much of your time. And thank you, everybody, for listening and tuning in on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at TPortalCFB. We've got tons of content coming out this week because we've got a huge slate of games. Check us out on YouTube, on Twitch, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere that you can support us. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.